The sun hung low in the sky, casting a dim orange glow over the desolate surface of the alien planet. It had been days since Jacob, a human soldier, had seen any signs of life. His ship had crashed into this forgotten world, a barren land in the farthest corner of the galaxy. The wreckage was scattered across the dry ground, and the air was thick with dust. Jacob's supplies were running out, and he knew it wouldn't be long before he ran out of food and water. Jacob was tired, hungry, and alone. His thoughts often drifted back to Earth, to the family he left behind, and the life he had once known. But the reality of his situation was harsh. There were no rescue ships, no help on the way. The communication systems were down, and his chances of survival seemed slimmer with each passing hour. He had almost given up hope when he heard something. It was a soft sound, barely a whisper over the wind. Jacob squinted into the distance, trying to focus his eyes. At first he thought it was just another illusion caused by the heat, but then he saw it again: movement. Something small, something alive. He grabbed his gun instinctively, though. He knew it was unlikely to be of any use against whatever might be out there. Jacob cautiously walked toward the sound, his heart pounding in his chest. The sun had almost disappeared behind the horizon, and the cold of the night would soon be upon him. But right now he needed to know what he was hearing as he reached the source of the noise. Jacob froze. There, sitting on the cracked ground, was a small alien girl. She couldn't have been older than 5 or 6 Earth years. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, with delicate scales that shimmered in the fading light. Her large, curious eyes were the color of the sky just before dawn, and her small frame trembled slightly from the cold. She looked up at Jacob, her expression one of quiet surprise. Jacob felt a pang of sympathy for the girl. She appeared as lost as he was, though in a very different way. She had no weapons, no visible means of defense. Her clothes were torn, her face streaked with dirt. And yet there was a sense of calm about her, quiet innocence that Jacob couldn't ignore. He kneeled down slowly, trying not to startle her. "Hey there," he said softly, though he wasn't sure why he was speaking to an alien. "Are you okay?" The girl stared at him for a long moment, her wide eyes scanning him from head to toe. Jacob wasn't sure if she understood the words he was saying, but her gaze softened, and she nodded slightly. She didn't speak, but there was something in the way she looked at him, a silent understanding. Jacob hesitated, then remembered the rations he still had left. He had only a few small packets of food, and they wouldn't last long, but the girl seemed desperate. She was starving, just like him. He reached into his pack, pulling out the last of his emergency rations. The small, sealed packet of dried food looked almost pitiful in his hands, but it was all he had. "I don't have much," Jacob said as he tore open the packet and offered it to her. "But it's something." The food to Jacob's face, and for a moment Jacob thought she might refuse. She didn't move. But then, after what seemed like an eternity, she took the food from him with trembling hands. She sniffed it cautiously, then looked back up at him. Jacob smiled. "Go ahead. It's safe." Shh. She stared at him for a moment, as if unsure, but then broke off a small piece and tasted it. Her face lit up with surprise, and Jacob couldn't help but chuckle. "I'm glad you like it," he said, though his voice was laced with sadness. He knew it wasn't much, but it was the last of his food. He had no idea when or if he would find more. The girl ate quickly, devouring the small portion like she had been without food for days. Jacob watched her, feeling a strange sense of pride. Here he was, on the brink of death, and he was helping someone else. It wasn't much, but it was all he could do. When the girl finished, she looked up at him again, her eyes wide with gratitude. Jacob noticed that she seemed to be more than just thankful. There was something else, something unspoken behind her gaze. Maybe it was the connection they both shared in this lonely, hostile world. She was a stranger, yet they both understood the pain of survival. Jacob could feel his own energy slipping away. The hunger gnawed at him, but his mind was clearer now. He wasn't going to survive much longer on this planet, but at least he had done something good. At least he had helped someone, even if she wasn't human. "Stay safe," he said softly, more to himself than to the girl. And remember, there's always hope, even when it seems like there's none left." The girl nodded, though her expression remained unchanged. She seemed to understand him, even if she couldn't speak his language. Jacob watched as she stood up, slowly dusting off her tattered clothes. She took one last look at him before turning and walking away into the darkness. "Good luck," Jacob muttered under his breath as the girl disappeared into the night. Jacob sat back against a large rock, closing his eyes for a moment. He felt a strange warmth in his chest despite the cold night air. The kindness he had shown to the girl was something he could hold on to, even in his final moments. He didn't know what would happen next, if anyone would ever find him, if he would live to see another day, but he knew one thing for sure. He had done something good. Maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Jacob sat on a rocky outcrop, staring out at the endless horizon. The years had passed, and yet the memory of the alien girl lingered in his mind. It had been so long since that night when he had shared his last meal with her. He had hoped that maybe someone or something would come to rescue him. But no one ever did. The planet, once so mysterious, now felt like a cage. The dusty winds blew relentlessly, and the night brought freezing cold that bit at his bones. His body had grown weaker with each passing day. His rations were gone, and the water supply was low. He had learned to drink from small streams, though. The water was often murky and tasted strange. He had nothing left to trade, no technology to call for help, and no strength left to keep searching. The idea of survival had started to feel more like a slow, fading memory. The thought of the little alien girl often came to him in the quiet hours, when the world was still, and he was left alone with his thoughts. Her innocent face, those large eyes that had looked at him with such trust, had never faded. He wondered if she had survived, if she had found food, or if she had been taken by the dangers of the planet. "Stay safe," he had told her, and yet he wasn't even sure he had the strength to keep himself safe anymore. Jacob often wondered what had happened to her after they parted ways. She had been so small, so fragile. The thought of her still haunted him, but there was little he could do now. He had no way of finding her. She had disappeared into the wilderness that night, just as quickly as she had appeared. He had spent months searching for a way off this planet, but every attempt to fix the ship had failed. Every system was broken beyond repair, and he lacked the tools to even attempt to fix it. The crash had left everything in pieces: metal, wires, and broken parts. Jacob had tried to make it work, but the odds were stacked against him. Even with the few resources he had, survival seemed impossible. Every day felt the same. He woke up, ate what little food he had left, and spent his time trying to find anything that would help him survive. But as the days stretched on, he began to lose hope. His body had become frail, his mind clouded with fatigue. He had little to live for now. He often found himself staring at the ground, wondering if this was the end. Then, one evening, as Jacob sat near a dying fire, something changed. A strange sound filled the air, almost like a hum. Jacob's head snapped up. He was too weak to believe his ears at first, but as the sound grew louder, he knew it was real. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was someone here? Just another illusion? His hands trembled as he reached for his rifle, though he knew it was pointless. His weapon had not seen action in years, and it was as much a part of the wreckage as the ship itself. Yet he couldn't help but feel a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone had come for him. The humming sound grew louder. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. Then in the distance he saw it. A shipper, small, sleek vessel that shimmered under the light of the setting sun. His heart raced as the ship descended toward the ground, sending up plumes of dust as it landed softly on the rocky surface. It didn't look like any ship Jacob had ever seen. The design was unfamiliar, alien in every way, yet somehow beautiful. His mind was racing. Who could it be? What was happening? The ship's hatch opened with a soft hiss, and a figure stepped out. At first, Jacob thought it was just his imagination playing tricks on him, but as the figure grew clearer, his heart almost stopped. There she was, the alien girl. But she wasn't a little girl anymore. The small, fragile child he had once helped had grown into a young woman. Her body was taller, more graceful, yet her eyes, the same large, innocent eyes, were unmistakable. Her skin shimmered in the fading light, the same soft blue as before. But now there was a strange aura of power around her. Jacob stood up slowly, unsure if his legs would hold him. His heart pounded in his chest as he took a step forward. "You ... double quotes," he started. "You're alive." The alien woman nodded, a small, soft smile tugging at her lips. "Yes," she replied, her voice calm and steady. "I am." Jacob couldn't believe it. All these years he had thought about her, wondered if she was still out there, and now here she was, standing before him as if she had never left. He could hardly find the words to speak. Want? Why was she here? She stepped closer, and as she did, Jacob noticed the changes in her. She was no longer a child. She had the air of someone who had seen battles, someone who had learned the ways of the world, not just in terms of survival, but in leadership. The way she carried herself spoke of authority and strength. Yet in her eyes, Jacob saw something familiar, the same look of trust and kindness that had been there when they first met. "You saved me," she said softly, her voice full of gratitude. "I remember the food, the kindness you showed me. I have never forgotten." Jacob blinked, feeling a wave of emotion wash over him. He had no idea what to say. I didn't expect to see you again," he murmured. The woman's expression softened. "I never forgot what you did for me," she said again, "and I came to repay your kindness." Jacob shook his head. "You don't need to repay anything," he said, feeling the weight of his words. "It was just a little food. It wasn't much." The woman smiled. "It was everything to me," she said firmly. "You saved my life. Now I will save yours." Jacob stared at her in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was this real? She had grown into someone powerful, someone important. And yet she was here for him, someone who had nothing left to give. He could hardly believe it. But in that moment, he realized something. He wasn't alone anymore. Somehow, the kindness he had shown had come full circle. The girl he had helped all those years ago was now offering him the chance to live, to see the world beyond this barren planet, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Jacob allowed himself to believe in hope again. The sun had just started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, when Jacob's eyes locked on the alien woman standing before him. He was still trying to process the unbelievable reality of the moment. It's the girl he had helped. So many years ago, who had been just a fragile child then, was now an adult. She wasn't just any adult, though. She radiated a quiet strength, sense of purpose, in the way she stood tall and confident. For a long time, Jacob had wondered what had happened to her. Had she survived the harsh world he had left behind? Had she been safe, taken care of? Seeing her standing there in front of him, those questions were slowly being answered. I never expected to see you again," Jacob said softly, his voice filled with disbelief. The woman, her features now more defined and confident, smiled. Gently, "I didn't expect it either," she said, her voice calm and steady. "But I've never forgotten you. You helped me when I had nothing, and now it's my turn to help you." Jacob shook his head in confusion. "You're telling me you've come all this way just for me? After all these years?" She nodded. "I came because of the kindness you showed me. I made a promise to myself to repay it, to find you one day. I never forgot the food you gave me when you had nothing left yourself. I've spent years tracking you down, waiting for the right moment to come." Jacob felt his chest tighten. He couldn't understand how someone could remember such a small, simple act for so long. It had been just a few minutes of his life. A gesture born out of empathy, but for her it had meant something more. "You've been looking for me all this time?" he asked, still astonished. "Yes," she replied. "I have risen in my people's ranks, and I now have the means to travel across the galaxy. I knew it would take time, but I never stopped searching, and now here I am. Jacob looked at her, unable to find the words. The idea of someone, especially someone from an entirely different species, doing something like this for him seemed too much to comprehend. But why? Why help me? She paused for a moment, her eyes softening as she looked into his. Because in your moment of need, you gave me what you had left. You gave me food when you were starving yourself. That selflessness is rare, and I promised I would never forget it. In this galaxy, where survival is often about what you can take from others, you showed me the true meaning of kindness. Jacob was speechless. He had never seen himself as anything special. He had only done what he thought was right. Now he was being told that his small action had made a difference, a lasting one. He had never realized how far the ripples of kindness could travel. The woman's voice brought him back to the present. I know you've been alone for a long time, she said gently, but you don't have to be alone anymore. Let me help you. I have a ship, a way to get you off. This planet, you don't have to keep surviving on your own. Jacob's heart beat faster. The words felt too good to be true. He had been on this planet for so long, and now someone was offering him an escape. But even as he felt the warmth of hope filling his chest, a part of him hesitated. He had been alone for so long, and he wasn't sure he could trust anyone, not even Herd, despite what she had just said. I don't know, trailed off, his eyes glancing toward the wreckage of his ship in the distance. I've been here for so long, I've learned to live with it. Maybe I don't belong anywhere else. The woman stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with understanding. I can't promise that everything will be easy, but I can promise that I'll be there to help you. You don't have to stay here any longer. I'm here now. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Jacob stared at her for a moment, his thoughts racing. It had been so long since he had spoken to anyone, let alone someone offering to help him. The memories of his struggle, the days when he felt like giving up, the loneliness, the desperation, were still fresh in his mind. But the warmth of the woman's words, the compassion in her eyes, made him feel something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. I don't know what to say. Jacob muttered, his voice thick with emotion. I never thought I would get out of here. I never thought I'd see anyone again, let alone someone who remembers me like this. She smiled softly, stepping closer to him. You saved my life when you had nothing left to give. I'm here now because of that, and I won't let you go. Back to living in the shadows? We can start fresh. Jacob's eyes filled with tears. He had never expected this, never imagined that a small act of kindness could come back to him like this. It seemed too good to be true, but looking at her now, he knew that this was real. All right, Jacob said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Let's go. I'm ready. The woman nodded, and for the first time in years, Jacob felt a sense of peace. The weight of the past seemed to lift off his shoulders. She led him toward the ship, and as they walked, Jacob couldn't help but think about the journey ahead. He didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long while, he had a reason to believe that something good awaited him. The alien woman's ship stood before them now, sleek and shining under the fading sunlight. Jacob could hardly believe he was standing before it, about to leave this desolate world behind. His mind raced with the possibilities, the unknowns, and yet all he felt was a quiet sense of gratitude. You know, Jacob said as they boarded the ship, I never thought I'd find someone like you, someone who cared. She looked at him, her eyes soft with understanding, and I never thought I'd find someone like you, someone who gave everything, even when it seemed like there was nothing left to give. As the ship's engines hummed to life, Jacob settled into the seat next to her, feeling the weight of his past slowly drift away. They had both come from different worlds, but their paths had crossed in a way neither could have predicted. And now they would face whatever came next together. The ship lifted off the ground. And for the first time in years, Jacob smiled. His journey wasn't over, but it was just beginning. Jacob sat in the small, comfortable seat of the alien ship, watching as the barren world he had spent so many years on grew smaller and smaller in the distance. The woman, whose name he had yet to learn, sat beside him at the controls. The ship hummed softly, and though Jacob didn't know much about space travel, he could feel the steady pulse of the engines beneath them. He glanced at her, still trying to wrap his head around everything that had happened. It felt like a dream. Just hours ago, he had been alone, wondering if he would ever make it off that harsh planet. And now, he was flying through the stars with the alien girl who had once been just a child in need of help. "Are you all right?" she asked, breaking the silence. Jacob looked at her, surprised by the question. "I'm fine," he said, though. His voice betrayed his uncertainty. "I guess I just... I can't believe all this is happening. It feels unreal." The woman smiled softly, her eyes warm. "I understand. It's a lot to take in. But I promise you're not alone anymore." Jacob nodded, though he still had a lot of questions. "I'm just trying to understand why you would do this for me. You said I helped you when you were hungry, but I don't know how I could have meant so much to you. I just gave you my last food." The woman turned her gaze toward the view ahead, watching as the stars twinkled in the darkness. "It wasn't just the food," she said softly. "It was the fact that you helped me when you had nothing. I was a stranger, and you didn't know me. You didn't know what I was capable of, or where I came from. But you didn't hesitate. You gave me what you had, and that act of kindness stayed with me." Jacob felt a knot form in his throat. But I wasn't thinking about anything like that. I was just trying to survive." "I know," she replied, her voice gentle. "But you did more than survive. You cared. And that's what made all the difference." Jacob looked out at the stars, his mind still trying to process everything. "I never expected any of this. I never thought I would find someone who remembered me for something like that." The woman chuckled softly. "You'd be surprised. Kindness has a way of sticking with people, even when they don't realize it. I've spent years working my way up, making connections with my people. And I always knew that someday I would come back for you." Jacob turned to her. "You're a leader of your people, aren't you?" She nodded. "I am now. But I didn't start that way. When I was young, I had no power, no status. But because of the kindness you showed me, I found the strength to rise. Your example was always in the back of my mind, and it helped shape the person I am today." Jacob didn't know how to respond. The thought that his small act of kindness had influenced someone so profoundly was overwhelming. "I never thought of myself as anything special," he said quietly. "I was just doing what seemed right. And that's what made it special," she said, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his heart race. "You did what was right, without expecting anything in return. And now, I have the chance to repay that kindness." Jacob looked out the window, watching the stars blur past as they traveled through space. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I've been on that planet for so long, I've forgotten what life was like outside of it." The woman smiled, reaching over to gently place a hand on his arm. "That's why I'm here, to help you. You don't have to worry anymore. I'll show you a new life. A life full of opportunities, where you won't have to fight for every breath or wonder if you'll make it another day." Jacob turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't even know what to say. I never thought I'd find this kind of help." "You don't have to say anything," she replied softly. "Just let me help you. Let me show you the world beyond this one. You deserve more than the life you had. You've earned it." As the ship traveled farther from the planet, Jacob felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The woman beside him was offering him a future, a chance at a new life. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe in something better. He wasn't alone anymore. The woman looked over at him again. "Once we reach my homeworld, things will change. You'll see what it's like to be part of something bigger. You'll have a place there, I promise." Jacob wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer the man he had been on that desolate planet. He had been given a second chance. He wasn't going to waste it. As the ship continued its journey, the stars ahead seemed to shine a little brighter. Jacob looked at the woman once more, feeling a sense of hope he hadn't thought possible. Just a short time ago, she had come back for him, and that kindness, that gift she had given him, would be something he would carry with him forever. "You've given me more than I could ever ask for," Jacob said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." The woman smiled warmly, her eyes full of understanding. "No, Jacob, thank you for showing me what kindness truly means. As the ship soared through the vast expanse of space, Jacob realized that his journey was far from over. It was only just beginning, no matter what challenges lay ahead. He was no longer alone. He had someone by his side, someone who had shown him the true power of kindness. The ship's interior was quiet as it glided through the vast stretches of space. Jacob sat beside the woman who had been guiding him through every step of the journey. Despite all that had happened, there was still a part of him that couldn't quite believe it. He'd spent so many years alone on that barren planet, trying to survive, and now he was on a spaceship. Traveling to another world, it was almost too much for him to take in. For the first time in a long while, Jacob felt a sense of calm. He was no longer in survival mode, constantly fighting for every breath. He wasn't alone. He wasn't stranded. The woman beside him had made that possible. The alien world he was headed to promised a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the days of hardship. "You're quiet," the woman said, glancing at him. Jacob looked up at her, surprised that she had noticed. "I'm just trying to take all of this in," he said with a small smile. "I can't believe I'm leaving all of that behind." He motioned toward the window where the desolate planet was now just a distant speck. "After all these years, I never thought I'd be free from it." The woman nodded. "I understand. It's not easy to leave everything behind, even if it was a place of pain and struggle. But you've done it, and now you have a chance to begin again." Jacob took a deep breath and settled back into his seat. He thought of all the years he had spent on that barren planet, the days when he had almost given up. But now he was on his way to a place where he could build a new life. A life full of hope and possibilities. "I never thought I would find a place like this," Jacob said, his voice quiet. "I didn't even think I deserved it. I didn't think I had anything left to offer." "You have more to offer than you realize," the woman said softly. "Your kindness, your strength, those things matter more than you know. And now, you have a chance to share those things with others, just as I did for you." Jacob looked at her, his heart full of gratitude. "I don't know what to say. You've given me so much, more than I could have ever imagined. Would have made it out of that place without you." The woman smiled, her eyes kind. "You've made it this far because of who you are. You've survived, even when the odds were against you. That's something worth respecting. And now, I'm here to help you find your place in the world." The ship continued its journey. Jacob couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. He was going to start over, to leave behind the loneliness and the struggle. For the first time in so long, he allowed himself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could find a purpose again. Hours passed, and the woman guided the ship toward her homeworld. She had told him little about it, only that it was a place of great beauty, with technology and resources beyond anything Jacob could have imagined. She had promised him a place among her people, a chance to be part of something larger than himself. Eventually, the ship began to slow, and Jacob could see the faint outline of a planet ahead. It was unlike any world he had seen before. The surface was covered with lush greenery, vast oceans, and towering mountains. As they drew closer, Jacob's breath caught in his throat. The world looked peaceful, full of life. It was everything he had dreamed of, but never thought possible. The woman looked at him and smiled. "Welcome to my home." The ship descended gently into the atmosphere, and Jacob felt the excitement in his chest grow. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't the same man who had crash-landed on that lonely planet. He had changed, and the future now seemed full of possibilities as the ship touched down on the surface. The woman stood and motioned for Jacob to follow her. He stood up slowly, his legs feeling a little unsteady after the long journey, but the excitement kept him moving forward. Together they exited the ship and stepped onto the soft grass of the alien planet. Jacob took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill his lungs. The world around him was alive with vibrant colors. The sky was a soft shade of blue, and the sun shone brightly, warming the land. It was so different from the harsh world he had left behind. The woman turned to him. "This is where you'll begin again. This is where you'll find your place." Jacob looked around in awe. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "I never thought I would see something like this." She nodded. "I know, it's a lot to take in, but you'll find your way here. You have a new chance at life, I'll be here to help guide you." Jacob smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He looked at the woman, his heart full of gratitude. "Thank you for everything," she smiled back. "You don't need to thank me. You've earned this. You've earned a new beginning." As they walked together, Jacob couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose beginning to form within him. He didn't know exactly what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was where he was meant to be. The woman led him to a large building in the distance. It was unlike any structure Jacob had ever seen, sleek and elegant, with smooth curves and soft lighting. It stood tall and proud, a symbol of the advanced civilization of her people. As they entered, Jacob was greeted by a group of beings who looked at him with curiosity and warmth. They were different from the woman, but their eyes held the same kindness and understanding. "This is where you will be welcome," she said, gesturing toward the group. "These are my people, and they will help you find your place here." Jacob's heart swelled with emotion. He had come so far from being stranded on a lonely planet to now standing in the heart of an advanced society, surrounded by people who had the power to change his life. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was a road full of hope, and that was enough for him. He turned to the woman. "Thank you," he said again, his voice full of sincerity, "for showing me that there's more to life than survival." Woman smiled. "It was always there, Jacob. You just had to be ready to see it." As Jacob looked around, he realized that his journey had only just begun, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. Jacob stood in the center of the vibrant city, taking in everything around him. The buildings, made of smooth stone and shining materials, stood tall and proud, stretching toward the sky. The streets were lined with trees, their leaves glowing, with colors Jacob had never seen before, shades of blue, purple, and gold. The air smelled fresh and clean, with a faint hint of sweet flowers. He had never imagined such a place existed. As they walked through the bustling city, the alien woman beside him, who he had learned was named Lyra, guided him through the crowd. People of all shapes and sizes passed by, many giving nods of recognition and smiles. Jacob felt a sense of peace he had never known before. The cold, desolate world he had left behind seemed like a distant memory, and now standing in this thriving city, he felt like a new person. "This is the capital of my people," Lyra explained, her voice warm and welcoming. "We call it Verakesh. It's the heart of our civilization." Jacob nodded, trying to take it all in. He had never been part of anything so advanced. The technology here was beyond anything he had imagined, and the people seemed so kind, so full of life. It was a stark contrast to the emptiness he had felt for years on that desolate planet. Couldn't help but feel like he was living in a dream. As they walked, Lyra continued to speak. "We've worked hard to create a world where kindness and cooperation are the foundation of everything. When I was young, I dreamed of a life like this. Now I'm proud to say that I've helped shape this society." Jacob looked at her, amazed. "You've done all of this. You've built all of this." Lyra smiled softly, her eyes glowing with pride. "Not alone. I had many teachers, and many people helped me along the way. But yes, I've had a hand in shaping this world. And now, I want to share it with you." Jacob felt overwhelmed. He had been just a soldier, a man lost on a planet, and now he was standing in the heart of a powerful civilization. He never expected anything like this, and he certainly never expected to be welcomed in a world so different from his own. "I don't know what to say," Jacob admitted, feeling a lump form in his throat. "I never thought I would be a part of something like this. I thought I was too far gone, too far lost." Lyra turned to him, her eyes full of understanding. "You are here now, Jacob. You were never too far gone. You just needed to find a place where you belonged, and that's what I'm offering you." Jacob took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words sink in. For so long he had struggled alone, thinking that his actions didn't matter, that he didn't matter. But Lyra had shown him something different. She had shown him that kindness, even a small act, could change the course of a life. It had changed hers, and now it was changing his. They arrived at a large open square, where a group of people had gathered. Lyra's people, Jacob could tell, were excited and curious. They were looking at him with a mix of admiration and interest, as though they were eager to meet the human who had become a part of their world. Some of them stepped forward, greeting Lyra and offering nods of respect to Jacob. Lyra turned to him, her voice soft but full of meaning. "Jacob, this is where your new life begins. These are my people, and they are eager to learn from you, just as I have. You have something to teach us." Jacob looked at the crowd, unsure of what he could possibly offer them. He was just a man, a soldier who had once been stranded on a barren world. What could he teach these advanced beings? They had everything. But then he remembered what Lyra had said: kindness, strength, and the willingness to help others. So maybe that was something worth sharing. "I'm not sure what I can teach," Jacob said slowly. "But I'll try. I'll do my best." Lyra smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "That's all anyone can ask for. You've already taught me so much." As they stood in the square, Jacob felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. The people around him weren't just curious about him, they were welcoming him, accepting him. They had already begun to see him not just as an outsider, but as someone who could contribute, someone who could share his experiences and his kindness with the world. Lyra led him to a raised platform in the center of the square. She gestured for him to stand beside her. "Jacob, my people have been following your story," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. They know of the sacrifice you made, the kindness you showed me when you had nothing left. And they admire that. You've already made a difference. And now we want to honor you." Jacob felt a rush of warmth. He had never been honored before, certainly not in this way. He was just a soldier, a man trying to survive, and yet here, he was standing in front of a crowd of people who saw him as something more. His heart swelled with emotion, and he realized that this was his new beginning. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about living, about sharing his experiences, and about making a real difference in the world. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, looking out at the crowd with a calm confidence. "Jacob, I present you with a place in our world, a home, a community, and a chance to contribute in ways you've never imagined. You are not just a guest here, you are one of us now." The crowd erupted into applause, and Jacob felt the weight of their admiration and respect. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid. He had found a place where he belonged, and he had found a purpose once again. As the applause settled, Lyra turned to Jacob, her voice soft but full of meaning. "This is just the beginning, Jacob. Together, we will build a future where kindness, compassion, and strength are the foundation of everything." Jacob nodded, his heart full of gratitude. He had come so far from the man he once was. The lonely soldier who had once given up on life now stood among a people who saw his worth, and he knew that he would never be alone again. The journey had been long, and the road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, Jacob felt ready to face it. With Lyra and her people by his side, he knew that anything was possible.